Wow, aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a little girl cutting up paper snowflakes? If you listen very closely, you can hear her humming away a little tune that she made up herself. Mesmerising stuff. Hello, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. Today, we're looking at another sonnet. Surprise, surprise. There's been 66 episodes so far, so what the hell did you expect when you tuned into this episode? You thought I'd be looking at Chaucer? Huh? You thought I'd be looking at Ben Jonson? You thought I'd be looking at Christopher Marlowe? No. This is a podcast all about Shakespeare. Come on, keep up. And actually, I've got some terrible news this week. And it's a problem that we've had before. But look, Sonnet 67 should be called... yeah, you guessed it. Sonnet 66 Part 2. How many times has Shakespeare done this to us? And look, I know if I was a good podcast host, I would have looked ahead and gone, oh, look, these two poems are linked. And maybe I would have done them in one fell swoop, in one sort of double-header episode. But I didn't, because I don't look ahead. I stay and live in the present. Very mindful of me. But, so this is essentially Sonnet 66 Part 2, but obviously he's called it Sonnet 67 just because he's trying to boost his numbers up, trying to have as many sonnets as he possibly can in his little sonnet bank. But if you haven't listened to Sonnet 66 episode, I suggest maybe just going back and having a listen, because we broke that down there. It was essentially Shakespeare just moaning about all the things that are wrong in the world, all the things that make him want to die. A happy, jolly sonnet, as you can imagine, but this is a direct link-on from Sonnet 66. So let's take a listen, shall we? Sonnet 67. Ah, wherefore with infection should he live, and with his presence grace impiety? That sin by him advantage should achieve and lace itself with his society. Why should false painting imitate his cheek, and steal dead seeing of his living hue? Why should poor beauty indirectly seek roses of shadow, since his rose is true? Why should he live, now nature bankrupt is, beggared of blood to blush through lively veins? For she hath no exchequer now but his, and, proud of many, lives upon his gains. Oh, him she stores, to show what wealth she had in days long since, before these last so bad. Right, so there we are, Sonnet 67. I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but currently my washing machine is on a cycle that is, I mean, it's beyond spin, I'd say. It's now kill. Is there a kill cycle on a washing machine? If there is, then it's in that mode. It is louder than anything I've ever heard. But I've got a time frame to record this, and I can't wait for it to finish. So you're going to have to put up with it, unfortunately. Anyway, that was just a side note, of course. Let's get back to the sonnet. Sonnet 67, he's basically gone on from all the things that annoy him in Sonnet 66, and he's talking more about his lover and his lover's beauty, and how that can't be imitated, and how annoying that is, and how nature is sort of getting ugly and dying and rubbish at the moment, and is just clinging on to Shakespeare's lover's beauty and holding that to herself. It's quite nice when Shakespeare brings in nature and calls her she and stuff, Mother Nature and all that. She's back. The character of nature is back, and she is welcomed here on this podcast with open arms. let's dive in line by line and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about in this one. So we start with a rather long thought, really, but here it is. Wherefore with infection should he live, and with his presence grace impiety, that sin by him advantage should achieve, and lace itself with his society. So here I think he's saying, why should my lover live in a world that is crap and corrupt and infected? Why should he grace idiots and fools with his presence only so that they can take advantage of their association with him to gain currency? Oh, look, it's great to be around Shakespeare's lover. They're leeches, these idiots, is what he's saying here. That's why people always want to be around him, just so that they can gain some social currency. Pathetic, really. You do question, though, is that why Shakespeare's around him? Just a thought. Why should false painting imitate his cheek, and steal dead seeing of his living hue? And this, I think, basically means, why should painters be allowed to imitate him? Why should painters be allowed to paint his beautiful face, making rubbish imitations of his beauty, of his amazingness? They shouldn't be allowed to. That should not be allowed. Good question, though, because, I mean, how many painters have made imitations of his lover's face? Is his lover famous? I mean, what is encouraging these painters to paint him so often? Is that a thing that everyone dealt with back in those days? Oh, not another person painting me. Can I just have a day off, please? And he continues with, why should poor beauty indirectly seek roses of shadow, since his rose is true? Which is saying, why should people not as good looking as my lover, Shakespeare's lover, try to imitate being roses when actually they're false roses, and the only real rose is Shakespeare's lover? These sad acts trying to be roses. What the hell are you playing at, guys? You're not as good looking as my lover. My lover's the only true rose, is what he's saying here. Don't even try it. You're just a false rose. Why should he live, now nature bankrupt is, beggared of blood to blush through lively veins? So now, of course, he's bringing nature into it, and he's saying, why should he, Shakespeare's lover, live now that nature is so ruined? It's ruined so badly that it can't actually infuse any more liveliness and beauty into anything. So what's the point? What's the point in living if nature can't do that? And he carries on with the nature side of things. For she hath no exchequer now but his, and, proud of many, lives upon his gains. So nature has no beauty except his, Shakespeare's lover. And because she has to provide for so many people, aka the whole bloody world, alright, nature, it's quite a big job, she has to borrow beauty from him. That's the only person she can borrow from now. The last beautiful person left. So, big job for both of them, really. You can't blame nature. Well, I would say. I mean, Shakespeare's being very harsh on nature. But, I mean, if nature has lost all its beauty and is really in the gutter here, I mean, there's one person that can provide it. You would just go to that person, wouldn't you? You'd sap their beauty. So let's all be honest now. Give a little bit of your beauty back, you know? Every little helps. And now, of course, we're on to the final couplet. O him she stores, to show what wealth she had in days long since, before these last so bad. And here he's saying, nature keeps my lover alive just to show the beauty that she once had in days gone by, long ago, before these bad, crappy recent days where nature's on its knees. So it just sort of keeps him around as a reminder of how beautiful everything once was. I've got to say, if Shakespeare was going to redraft this, the line "before these last so bad," not his best, dare I say. It's a bit of a mouthful. In days long since, before these last so bad. That's like a 6-year-old writing, in my eyes. That's just someone that hasn't really quite got to grips with grammar yet. Maybe Shakespeare was a child at this point, I don't know. Not for me to say, but if he wasn't, then he should have gone back and changed that, because it's not good enough. Sorry, Shakespeare, it's not good enough. So, overall, a bit of a weird sonnet, sort of saying that his lover is really beautiful and that nature relies on his lover's beauty, and that's annoying somehow, and people try and imitate his lover, and that's annoying. So he's still saying things that annoy him, but now it's much more closely linked to his lover. So I think it's about time we fit this to our story. And if you remember last week, Shakespeare has gone out to Barbados and he has met up with Christopher Marlowe, and they've gone out for dinner, and he's recited Sonnet 66 to him at the dinner table. Let's see how Christopher Marlowe responds and how Sonnet 67 fits into all this. Shakespeare finished reading Sonnet 66 to Christopher Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe leaned back in his chair and said, "By God, Shakespeare, you're really saying that you would kill yourself if I wasn't around? That because of all this crap that's going on in the world, you're so depressed you'd want to kill yourself, but you don't because of my beauty?" And Shakespeare said, well, I suppose so, yes. And Christopher Marlowe says, "Wow, well, I don't think anyone has ever said that about my beauty before. Of course, people have called me beautiful a lot. I mean, people call me beautiful every day, but not in this way. They haven't threatened suicide before." And Shakespeare said, "Well, hey, Chris. Can I call you Chris? That's just who I am. That's me. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and if you can't deal with that, then I better go." And Christopher Marlowe says, No, stay. Listen, I must go to the bathroom. I'll be back shortly." Christopher Marlowe gets up and heads to the little boy's room, leaving Shakespeare on his own. A few hours go by and Christopher Marlowe doesn't return. Shakespeare thinks, gosh, I hope he's okay. He must have got caught up doing something, maybe work or something. And in that time, Shakespeare slammed back 10 bottles of wine. That's quite a lot of wine. And he looks out at the beach that the restaurant is overlooking. And he thinks, God, this world has gone to shit, hasn't it? Look at this. This sand and trees is not that beautiful, to be honest. Actually, not as beautiful as my lover. It's not as beautiful as my lover, Christopher Marlowe. He's much more beautiful than nature. And he gets up from his chair and wanders out onto the beach, picking up some sand and leaves. As he walked slowly into the ocean, he shouted up at the air above him and said, "Hey, nature, I gotta have a word with you. I know we've talked before, many sonnets ago, but I've got another sonnet for you, okay? You ready? Are you brave enough to hear it?" Of course, nature doesn't reply, because nature can't speak. But Shakespeare decides to recite Sonnet 67, off the cuff. Sonnet 67. Ugh. Why should my man live in this infected world, gracing idiots with his presence, just so they can take advantage of being associated with him? Why should painters be allowed to imitate his face, making shit, lifeless copies of his beauty? Why should people less hot than him imitate being roses, when he is the only true rose? And why should he live now that nature is ruined so badly that it can't infuse anyone with liveliness and beauty? Because nature has no beauty now except him. And because she has so many people to provide for, she needs to borrow beauty from him. Oh, nature keeps him alive so she can remember the wealth of beauty she once had, long ago, before these bad days came along. So, there it is, Sonnet 67, or indeed Sonnet 66 Part 2. And this story is taking some crazy turns. I mean, where is Christopher Marlowe? Why is he gone? He was there, and then he's gone to the toilet, but it's taken him 2 hours or more. And why is Shakespeare shouting at nature? He's lost his mind. Or is that just the alcohol? Find out what will happen next week on the final couplet. Until then, bye!